Okay, well, I've got a couple of minutes after 3, so let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the workshop today, being sponsored by the Digital Agriculture and Advanced Analytics Group. My name is Sean Hutchinson. I'm a professor of geography here in the Department of Geography and Geospatial Sciences. A couple of other jobs that I have. I'm the current director of the Natural Resource and Environmental Sciences secondary major. And I run the lab right behind Dr. McCornack over there, the Geographic Information Systems Spatial Analysis Lab, which is one of the university's 14 core laboratory facilities. So excited to have you here today. And I wanted to put something together that was really accessible to a large cross-section of faculty, staff, and students without necessarily having a lot of GIS expertise ahead of time. So the topic for today is digital storytelling with ArcGIS StoryMaps. As we get started here, the first thing that I want to do is make sure all of our remote participants on Zoom, as well as those here in the room, have access to some important resources. If you are here in Seton 3014A, if you open up File Explorer, you should have a mapped network drive called W. Click on that W drive, please, and you should navigate to Geog Courses and Digital Storytelling Workshop. In there, you'll see the PowerPoint that I'm using today, as well as 2 Word documents. Digital Storytelling Resources includes all of the links to web pages that you'll see today if you don't remember, so that could be useful. As well, Digital Storytelling State Soils is all the information that we need to put together the story map that we're going to work on today. I've tried to do most of the content work so we can just focus on construction of the story map. In addition, there's a subdirectory called Images, which has a bunch of photographs, images in them. We'll need those here today as well. If you could, drag that entire, again for the in-person participants, drag that entire digital storytelling workshop over to your desktop. For those remote participants, there's a OneDrive link in the chat that gives you access to the exact same files. 2 Word documents, a PowerPoint file, and a subdirectory called Images. Again, we'll need those here today. Everybody able to find that information? So you're welcome to make a copy and take that home with you if you find those materials useful here today. So my plan of action, first of all, is to ask you guys a couple of questions. How many faculty are here? Show of hands. Okay. Staff? Students? 2 students, 3, 4 students. Okay, good. All right. Did I miss any category of people? Faculty, staff, students? All of us? Postdoc. Okay. Postdocs. How many of you have taken a GIS course before or have some GIS practical experience? Some? Who's never heard of GIS or never opened a GIS program before? All right. So a little bit of both. Okay. Again, today's workshop is designed for 2 primary things. At the end, we're going to get into a very much kind of studio mode here in the classroom and do some hands-on work constructing a story map. The story that we'll create is the state soils of the Great Plains. You see a short screen capture of my version of that project that you can access with the short bit.ly link there. Or, again, the hyperlinks for all these websites and web applications are in the Digital Storytelling Resources document. But before we get to that, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the broader topics related to GIS here on campus, since I kind of have a good audience. We're going to discuss the GI Science Virtual Collaboratory. Is that something people have heard of before? Good. Anybody familiar with K-State's ArcGIS online GIS portal, our own university GIS portal? Okay, a few. Yeah, so we've got access to that. And I'll also mention very briefly, if you're interested in more information about courses in GIS and GI science here at K-State, or different academic credentials that you can pursue, I'll mention those. And then we'll get right into the story maps. If you could, open up a browser and go to gis.ksu.edu, the world's easiest to remember URL. gis.ksu.edu is the university's GI Science Virtual Collaboratory website. This site serves two primary purposes for the GIS community on our campus. First, it is our online portfolio for our current full membership in the University Consortium for Geographic Information Science. It's kind of our portfolio of qualifications to be part of that organization. K-State is the only full institution member of UCGIS, which is a nonprofit education organization to promote geographic information science. K-State's the only full institutional member of that organization in the state of Kansas. So it's our membership portfolio. It's also a place where we try to share information about our community of practice. So if you're looking for someone with expertise in GIS, if you have a research or instructional facility that geospatial work gets done, we can help advertise that through this site. And maybe for most people, the most important role this website serves, and I've highlighted it here on the slide, is you can download Esri GIS software. So if you have any interest at all in downloading desktop GIS software, enterprise scale GIS software, anything that we have access to here at K-State through our educational site license agreement, this is where the K-State community should go. All you need to access the software is a valid EID and password. Currently, the legal arrangement with Esri, the Environmental Systems Research Institute, the company that produces the ARC series of software packages, allows individuals, K-State faculty, staff, and students to install their software in an unlimited fashion, even on personally owned computers. So it costs us about $25,000 per year for that privilege. And right now, we should all thank the Dean of KSU Libraries because he is currently footing the bill for that site license. So if you see Dean Mocknick, please say thank you. Back in the old days, you may have heard me come around to all departments and units begging for money to pay for the site license, and the library simply just takes care of that for us today. If you ever have questions about GIS, how to get the software, how to install the software, how to create an account linked with K-State's GIS portal, and you call me, this is the website I'm going to send you to. Unless you're one of about 5 people on campus, again, this is the website you go to. Don't approach Esri or contact Esri for access to their software. They will tell you no. This is our portal for the K-State community to access all of that software. So gis.ksu.edu. Does anybody use desktop GIS software currently? A few, I see 1. Nobody else? 2? This is important. If you're not, okay, because the next thing I wanted to mention was a little bit about ArcGIS Pro, which is Esri's kind of current flagship desktop GIS software application. Probably the most commonly used GIS program, certainly on our campus and across the world. You can go to the GI Science Virtual Collaboratory to download the software, install it on your system. ArcGIS Pro is, as the slide says, a portal-centric GIS application, so it's designed specifically to work with GIS resources in the cloud. And the reason that ArcGIS Pro is so important is if you've been around for a while and used the older ArcMap or ArcGIS desktop software, there is going to be no more desktop software in that regard. Version 10.8.1, the latest release from Esri, was sent out in 2020. Beginning the spring of 2026, its lifespan ends. So if you're still using the desktop, ArcGIS desktop as your GIS software, now is the time, if you haven't already, to transition to using ArcGIS Pro. Do that. The learning curve is a little steep at first. You'll be cranky for a while, and then you'll go, how did I ever survive without ArcGIS Pro? If you download that software, the procedure that we'll go through here in a moment will guarantee that you are licensed and authorized to use the software. Again, with the older ArcGIS desktop software, we used to have physical or digital, I suppose, license files that would be valid for 1 year. And then it would expire, and you'd have to contact someone to get an updated license as soon as we renewed our software site license here at K-State. Well, with ArcGIS Pro, we can still do that. You can still go to the GI Science Virtual Collaboratory and download single-use or concurrent-use licenses. For most of us here, unless you're running a lab, you would use a single-use license. But what we are recommending is what's called a named user license. So with that, you never have to worry about having a current license, downloading new licenses, just having a valid EID and password that is registered with our university GIS portal gives you the ability to do that, to license the software. The next website I'd like everyone to go to, both remote participants as well as everyone here in the classroom, is kstate.maps.arcgis.com. This site is the university's official ArcGIS online portal. This belongs to K-State. And what we're about to do is create for everyone an account that's linked to our organization, which will activate a number of things behind the scenes for you. So once you're at the website, find the sign in button in the upper right. And after you click sign in, you're probably going to see a screen that looks sort of like this. Is that true? Sometimes there's a slightly different window that appears. If it looks like this, click on Kansas State University. For some reason, recently, Kansas State University appears twice. We can't quite figure out how that happened. Still works. But clicking on that takes you to K-State's official single sign-on page, our very familiar website where we enter our EID and password. Enter your EID and password, do dual authentication if you have to. Once you're successful in that, you will go back into the portal site with an official account. And if you look at that sign-in button, it probably says your first name, and right below your first name will be this really horrendous alphanumeric string. That really horrendous alphanumeric string is your login. But you don't need to know that. You just need to know your EID and password. If that's the first time you've gone through that process, 3 important things just happened. 1, you've created an Esri account linked to K-State with all its rights and privileges. 2, you've automatically activated a named user license for ArcGIS Pro, so you can run the desktop software if you so choose. 3, you've created this account within our portal with some really important privileges. Your account now has GIS Professional Advanced user type, which means you can do anything except delete accounts. It's almost as powerful as being a site administrator. So you can add resources to the portal, you can publish maps, you can create groups, you can share resources with a small group or the entire world. And your account also now has a role called publisher, which allows you to not just be a passive consumer of data, but to contribute data to the portal. And if you go to the site again, the portal site, kstate.maps.arcgis.com, you'll see some highlighted applications at the bottom and give you maybe a better idea of what's possible with ArcGIS Online. I'm going to go back to that here in a moment, but before we do, for those who want to run ArcGIS Pro on the desktop, because we've now created a named user license, when you start ArcGIS Pro, after you install and start it, again, when you're going to be prompted to log in, you'll see a box where you are to enter your organization's URL. That's kstate.maps.arcgis.com. You do that, the little blue K-State box appears. You click on that, enter your EID and password, and you're in. That's all you have to do. Never have to worry about updating that license. Since ArcGIS Pro, as well as a portal-centric GIS application, on the screen I've highlighted up in the upper right of the ArcGIS Pro start screen, you can actually connect to a portal as part of your desktop session. And since we all now have valid accounts to K-State's GIS portal, you can sign in with your credentials, and that way it makes sharing or consuming resources from that portal site seamless. You have questions after the session. How to find software, how to install software, what can I do in ArcGIS Online, other perks that all of us are entitled to as part of our institutional software site license, go to gis.ksu.edu. They are listed out in detail. Reduced cost publications, reduced cost conference registrations, reduced cost in-person and online training, a lot of things that we can take advantage of, as well as a lot of free training. Now that you have an authorized account, many of Esri's web-based training tutorials are open to you at no charge. So if you want to learn more and not take a class, there's a free resource for you just by being a member of the K-State community. It doesn't automatically update, but one of the nice things about ArcGIS Pro is it prompts you if there is an update. So when you log in, if Esri's made a minor or a major update or issued a patch, you'll get a little splash screen when you start the software saying that that's taken place. And then you have the option at that point of installing those updates. There's no need, once you've installed the software originally, there's no need necessarily to go back to the GI Science Virtual Collaboratory and download more software. Once it's installed, it will not self-update, but almost self-update. Yeah, we're currently at version 3.03, I think, and the last minor update was last week. So there are periodic updates to the software. A little bit about courses. So if you're interested, especially if you're a student and you're interested in learning more about GIS and GI science, we have a number of courses from the 300 level to the 800 level, kind of covering the gamut of topics that are important. Everything from cartography, thematic mapping, and geodesy, so we understand thematic map design, earth size and shape, map projections and coordinate systems, which is absolutely critical to GIS work. GIS 1 and GIS 2, where we go from a kind of a broad introduction to the power of GIS and spatial data models into model development, and then into some of the 700 level courses which deal with topics like today, StoryMaps, different types of web GIS applications and internet GIS, server-side GIS operations, as well as some programming related courses for GIS. Geography 302 is cartography and thematic mapping, a strongly recommended prerequisite for Geography 508, which is Geographic Information Systems 1. If you're asking about desktop GIS software, I would definitely recommend ArcGIS Pro. On the GI Science Virtual Collaboratory website, you can still obtain the installation files for the older ArcGIS desktop software. But as I said before, now's the time to make the transition to ArcGIS Pro. That's really the workhorse desktop GIS software program. If you happen to run a lab or are in charge of GIS operations for an organization here on campus, we could talk more about the enterprise GIS software, ArcGIS Server, ArcGIS Portal, commercial relational database needs and server architecture that would need to make that happen. So in addition to courses, as my boss Chuck Martin mentioned, we do offer cartography and GIS 1 as a summer course online. And don't forget as well about the web-based training that you can access through Esri with your K-State EID and password. Lots of good opportunities. If there aren't any other questions, that was my brief overview of kind of the GIS landscape across campus, some resources that are out there to help people. Let's get into StoryMaps finally, the topic for today. Has anybody created a story map before? Okay. Has anybody heard of StoryMaps before today? Okay. Yeah, so StoryMaps are kind of an interesting thing. It is a digital form of communication that's been around for a while, although the story maps of today are quite different in terms of their look and structure compared to as little as 2 years ago. You may be interested in taking a look at this website as we're talking. This is one of my favorite example story maps. It's Landsat 50 years observing a changing Earth. You can see the bit.ly link here, or if you happen to have access to that text document, digital storytelling resources, you can access it from there as well. I think it does a really nice job, if I actually click on the link as well, a really nice job of illustrating a lot of the different types of things we could choose to include in a story map. It's very immersive, it's very engaging, it's map-centric. You scroll down is the procedure with today's story map, and it's a collection of images, movies, graphs, and maps that tell some sort of story, right? A story map. Another example that I included is this one. This is one that I actually put together a couple of years ago now for the Kansas Sampler Foundation. Has anybody ever heard of the Wonders of Kansas? Yeah, so this is what story maps used to look like. Today, this would be called an Esri Instant App. And the Wonders of Kansas was a competition put together by a group called the Kansas Sampler Foundation to identify kind of unique or interesting things in the state. We put this together for them so you can see all of the original wonders and the nominees for that. So you can click on a picture. Where do we want to go? Let's go to Hutchinson in the Cosmosphere. I can click on that picture, access more information about that site. Its location on the map is highlighted, or I can click on a site on the map and it goes to that little bit of a story about that. Because that original competition was so popular, they launched a series of additional categories of wonders from architecture through history and people. So we simply added that into the map. One of my favorites are the cuisine wonders of Kansas. So if you're looking for a good staycation and you want to go eat some good food, most of these are still open and operational, and it could be the basis for a quick weekend plan. Again, this is what story maps used to look like. A little more primitive, a little less linear in its construction, but we still have access to this web-based template to very easily create apps like this with no programming expertise required. Just a little bit of computer savvy and some understanding about spatial data. That's what's needed. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. So if you want to construct a story map, there is a recipe. Obviously, you have to have a story to tell, right? You have to have a plan. What do you want to communicate to what audience? This is like an English or a media relations type of class, right? You've got to have something that you want to communicate in a specific audience that you want to communicate that to. As we'll see here in a moment, when we start constructing a story map, there are some templates that we can choose from. So some familiarity with what those templates look like and the type of experience it can give users is important as well. Once you have an idea for a story, the hardest part is actually assembling the components, right? The maps that you want to use, other media, the text that you want to appear. And again, I'm going to provide all of that for our exercise today. That information is contained in the digital storytelling, what was the file? Not resources, state soils, I think is the file name, if I remember correctly. So that'll be an important document for us to copy and paste some text into our building story map. Then you get feedback and you publish and share with the world. So this is what we're going to construct today. State soils of the Great Plains. I struggled a long time to come up with a good agricultural idea that would appeal, an agricultural theme that would appeal to a large cross-section of people. So I came up with state soils. If you want, take a look. We're going to have some information here, some pictures, a little bit of information about what state soils are. I'm getting all of this information from the NRCS, so you can actually click and access fact sheets for every state's state soil as a PDF file. State soils also have images associated with them called soil monoliths. Right? We used to have, there was a monolith back over here in the corner. So if you want to see what Harney silt loam soil looks like, you can look, again, go to the NRCS site, find the state. I'm just going to pick Oklahoma here. And you can see what their state soil port looks like in terms of a soil monolith. All of these monolith images, in turn, were collected by the Smithsonian Institution. So photos, each monolith for a state soil in the Great Plains region, you can find those images in the images folder of our shared resources. Finally, we get to the map. And on this custom map that we'll build together is in different colors the spatial extent of each state's state soil. And I cherry-picked just a handful of states within the Great Plains region. The format I'm using for this story map is called a map tour. So you choose your path through the map. If you want to see what Kansas looks like, you can find that on the scrolling window on the left, excuse me. Click on it. The map responds then to that action, zooms into the state of Kansas. I have a little place marker there that's controlling the zoom in action, and you can see in purple, of course, the spatial extent of our state soil, Harney. And some information taken directly from the NRCS state soil fact sheet. If you continue scrolling down, you'll go to a different state like Minnesota, Missouri, Montana. Okay. At the end, if I keep scrolling down, kind of finish out the map tour, at the very end of my story map, I have a little bit more information about soils in general, including an embedded YouTube video from the Soil Science Society of America talking about the importance of soils. And then I wrap it up with some credits. Where did I get that information? Okay. To put this together, I needed text, I needed pictures, I needed a map, and I needed access to our GIS portal. That's it. No programming, just a little bit of basic computer skills. We have a couple of options. We have many options, I should say, for the content of the maps we include in a story map. We'll see in a moment, the source of this map comes from what's called a web map that we're going to build in the portal. We can use data that other people have published to help fill out the map in terms of its actual content. It could just be a simple base map with administrative boundaries. Here we're actually bringing in soils data on a base map. The soils data is a resource that I've published to the portal that we can search for, find, and add to your maps. For those interested in web-based GIS services, we can publish maps with ArcGIS Pro and make them available as web-based map services that anybody can access through a URL as well. So about 5 or 6 different ways that we can go and grab content. Even if you don't know how to use ArcGIS Pro, if you can search for data in the portal, you can usually find really good resources to incorporate in your work. But once you sign in, I want you to go to your Content tab, and you can find that across the top of the GIS portal. So when I click on my content, you'll see on the left-hand side a bunch of file folders. Right, this is just my own personal organization system. You probably, at this point, if this is your first time accessing your content in the portal, there's nothing there. You just have a root directory. What I would recommend that you do for now, to isolate the work that we're going to do today into its own little place. Create new folder. It's that little icon just to the right of the word folders. And create a new folder called Digital Agriculture. After doing that, I've done the same thing. I have a Digital Agriculture folder in my portal content. And in my content, I have 3 things right now. You're not going to have anything yet. I have 3 items, one being a web map. That's about what we're about ready to create. And then I've also published what's called a hosted feature layer. This is the information that contains the soil piece that we're going to add to your web map. So it's something I acquired the data from the Web Soil Survey. I did all the hard desktop GIS work, and I published that data as this hosted feature layer. I have shared that resource with anyone who can access ArcGIS online, on or off campus. The little globe icon here says it's shared with the public. So anybody in the world who knows how to search for state soils or my username, which is K-State admin, can find this and use it in their own work. To get started, we're going to create a web map. So along the top, you'll see the word map. Go ahead and click on that. In the internet GIS world, if we're going to create a map to share with others or a map to serve as part of a web application or a story map, it all starts here with creating a web map. So when we first create the map, a base map is automatically added. What we need to do is actually come into, let's choose base map first. I want to change the base map. I don't like this base map. So if you choose that, what I recommend, you can kind of experiment with different base maps here, but one that works really well for our state soils story map is the human geography map. And using my mouse, I'm just going to kind of zoom in to the US. So the base map is just that. It's a base map, and it's something we want to superimpose useful operational information on top of this. Again, if you've been doing GIS work for a number of years, this is amazing, right? This is hours of work, potentially, that I just had to click a couple of mouse buttons, and I have access to this rich base map information without me doing any work. So we usually pick a base map that we want to utilize, and now we add data, right? Operational layers to that base map. And to do that, you want to find the Add button, and you have a number of choices here under Add. You can just simply search for layers, and if you do that, you'll be searching for information that is just in your content. See the word My Content right up here? If you click that word, you have other ways that you can search. You can search for groups that you might be part of, the entire K-State organization, the entire Esri global population of ArcGIS online users. And then there's another option here called the Living Atlas, which is Esri's attempt to collate a bunch of really useful information at a global scale. Everything from land use, land cover, to socioeconomic data. For this, choose My Organization, because I want you to enter in in the search window here to search the K-State portal. And what I want you to search for is state soils. Enter. And actually, if you refine that a little bit, if it's state soils _ WFL1, enter, one thing should appear. If you just did state soils, anything that was tagged with soils appeared in that window. So you could see there were a lot of resources that the K-State community had published related to soils. State soils _ WFL1 is that hosted feature layer that I published. I shared it with the world, so you can search for it under the organization. It should appear in your search pane on the left. To add it to your map, just click the little plus button. That's it. Back in your map, rather than looking at about information, choose content. And when you choose content, you'll now see at the very bottom of that list the name of your base map. For me, it's human geography. And then you'll see a bunch of different individual layers, all with the check mark next to them. In that hosted feature layer that I published each state's soil as a separate layer. So you can turn them on and off. If you turn off Harney, for example, maybe I can do it, right? And zoom into Kansas, Kansas state soil disappears. I was a little ambitious in my early work. Any state that intersected with the EPA Great Plains ecoregion boundary I included. If we want to ditch from our further analysis states like Wisconsin, Louisiana, or Illinois, we can uncheck the soils, and I had to put a list here. Antigo, don't need that. That's Wisconsin soil. Drummer, that's Illinois. And Ruston, that's Louisiana's state soil. The polygons, actually it's pixels that we see that are colored, again, represent each state's soil. Roughly center of mass, I've also manually placed a point feature called Smithsonian soil monoliths. That's the question mark symbol you see in my layer. In your map, if you click on that question mark, it accesses the underlying attributes for that feature. I think I was imprecise in my click. Let me zoom in. There I go. And as part of the attribute table for each of those points, I've included hyperlinks to the NRCS fact sheet that you can click and open it up. A little bit of text information that tells me that the state soil is Harney. And I've attached to it a picture of the monolith for that state. That's the attachment. So if I click on it, a new browser tab opens up and I get a nice full view of what a Harney silt loam soil looks like. Okay. So if you want to know how to do all of that, that's a GIS 1 type of topic. Okay. For our web map, though, I think we're going to skip that soil monolith point. So go ahead and turn that off as well. So we're left with our base map. And using my mouse, I'll kind of try to zoom in to a level that I'm capturing most of my area of interest, from Montana, North Dakota in the north to Texas in the south, with each of those state soils turned on. If you wanted, you could continue to search for additional layers to add to your map, but for our story map, this is exactly what we need. So once you're happy, find the Save option in your web map. Choose Save As, if this is the first time you're saving that map. You have the opportunity to give your web map a title. I'm going to call mine Demo State Soils. If you want to attach any tags, you can. Tags make your work searchable within our portal. And you can also choose to write a short summary about the map itself. Kind of some metadata for your map. Okay. Maybe the most important thing other than the title is we want to publish this map in the digital agriculture folder that we created in our content. It is, and I just hit Save. You can go back to your content. So we're done making our web map. So on the upper left where it says Home, if you click on that, you can choose Content to go back to your workspace. And if you choose your digital agriculture folder, you should now have at least one entry there that's of a type web map. You also probably at this stage, for your web map, if you go over to the little person icon, little people icon there, that icon is telling us that you haven't shared that with anyone yet. So the only people that can see that is you. If you want to open that up for other people to see, you can click on that, and you've got three and a half choices. You can keep it private, where you and only you can see it, usually pretty typical for work that's early in the development stages. I could choose to share it with anyone within our K-State organization, or I can choose everybody on and off of K-State. If I choose organization, the other thing I can do, and you with your login credentials, your EID, you have the ability to create a group in our portal. Maybe your research group, a class, and add all the members of your group or class to that group. You could choose to share that resource just with that group. And if you click group sharing, you'll get an exhaustive list of all the current groups we have here at K-State. So at this point, for what we're about to do, it is important to go ahead and update the sharing of our web map from private to at least organization. So I'll go ahead and do that as well. The icon changes from a little people person to a building. Esri is all about the word arc and little icons that mean really important things. Okay. So, congratulations. You've created your first web map in a GIS portal. And if you've updated the sharing, then anyone who can search for the title of your web map or one of the tags that you included can find it and use it as well. Always start with a web map. That is the foundational point for any type of web-based application, web-based GIS application that we create. So if you can Google search, you can get to the portal, a little bit of familiarity with the interface for web maps, you've made a positive step forward there. Okay, with a successful web map published and shared to the organizational level, you're going to want to open up another browser tab, yet another URL to remember. This one's also pretty easy, storymaps.arcgis.com. Again, if you ever created a story map 2 or 3 years ago, this is an entirely different procedure. It's one of the challenges working with Esri is they change things up every so often. storymaps.arcgis.com. This is what it'll look like when you first go to that website. And again, we want to find the sign in button in the upper right. Here you see a couple of options. You want to select your ArcGIS organization's URL, or if that's not open, expand that. And in the box, simply type K-State. No hyphen, all lowercase. We're recreating the URL for our portal here, kstate.maps.arcgis.com. Select Continue. Now we click on the blue K-State box again, and you can enter your EID and password. And you're in. Let me actually sign out, because I don't use this account for my own work. But that window probably looks really similar to yours. You don't have any content yet in terms of StoryMap. This website is really considered the StoryMap application builder site. Believe it or not, it's connected to your portal. So when you create a web map, or excuse me, a story map here, you'll also see it in your portal content. But this is the overarching application where we're going to construct the actual story map. If you click on New Story, upper right-hand corner, There are really three choices here that I recommend being familiar with. One is you can create a story map from scratch, meaning you're not going to use kind of a beginning template to put the story map together. We'll see in a moment all the different elements that you can choose to bring into a story map, and you have free permission to do anything. It's a blank palette that you just have to bring in different elements, add content, add text, and slowly build up the story. For us, though, I want to choose the Explorer Map Tour option. We're going to use that template to begin. If you happen to look at my personal story map at the beginning of class, the Hutchinson Home Range, that was put together using the guided map tour template. You didn't see a list of places that you could click on. You just literally went from where I was born and raised to where I am now in sequential order. We're going to do that guided map tour. Go ahead and click it, and the story builder will open up. In many regards, it's sort of like opening up Microsoft Word. Because we chose to start our story map with a template, this map was automatically added to the story map. This blank, empty map. That was the one real advantage of using the template. Okay? And we'll get to that here in a second. But before we go any further, this is where one of the resource documents is going to be really important. Again, if you're here in the lab, you can find that on the W drive. The Digital Storytelling State Soils document. For those of you on Zoom, that same Word document's available in the shared OneDrive account, or OneDrive folder. This is what the document looks like. So again, you got to have a story to tell, an audience to tell it to, and some content. Here's your content, which is by far the hardest part about constructing a story map, is the content. We're going to start off with a little bit of introduction, information in a section called About State Soils. We've got some hyperlinks and some buttons we're going to add to link to NRCS resources. Continuing to scroll down, I have blurbs about every state soil, Colorado, Iowa, and so forth, a couple pages of this. And then at the very end, lots of states, we'll wrap up with that piece, a little bit more information about soils and a YouTube video that we'll embed. Okay. So have that open, because we're going to be doing some cutting or copying and pasting into our story map. So far, so good? Okay. All right. So back to the builder. I have an advantage. I have a second monitor. I'll put that over here. So for our title, just click in that box for title for your story. You can type whatever you want, but our Word document says State Soils of the Great Plains. Again, in this resource document, right underneath that header, State Soils of the Great Plains, you can copy and paste this short sentence right below. Sorry. The Story Map Builder application that we're working within periodically saves your work, so you don't have to worry about inadvertently losing anything. We're very early on in the construction process, but if you want to take a look at what your story map is going to actually look like, up at the top there's a preview option. You can click on that. You'll get a warning about the history. Don't worry about that. Just continue. And there's our preview. And notice where the little purple dialog box is, we can preview the story map assuming a number of different types of clients. So right now I'm on the computer monitor client, but if I want to see what it's going to look like on a phone, I can click the phone option, maybe. So, which is really nice. Again, if you've done like web programming before, it's not fun to account for different clients. We're not directly accounting for that ourselves in code. The software is smart enough to try to do that, but we can bounce back and forth between different clients to make sure the overall effect is pleasing for a variety of devices. Okay. When you're done previewing, you can just hit that X on the menu at the bottom and go back to the editor. Okay, let's do the next thing. I'm going to bring over my resource document again. The next section that we want to add is about state soils. That'll be our header. And then there's 2 paragraphs that we'll copy and paste, along with a button that we'll create and embed a hyperlink. That button will take users to the PDF soil fact sheets produced by NRCS. So we're at a stage in our story map construction where there's not just a place to click and copy and paste. We've added a title and a short introduction. To add different elements, you can see if I move my mouse around in the builder, a little plus sign icon will appear. If you click on that, this is all the different types of elements that we can choose to add. And there's a bunch. At this point, we want text. So with that, I can either copy and paste about state soils. That's going to be one text block. I'm going to click the plus block, the content block again, add another text block. And this time, copy and paste those couple of paragraphs. Maybe. So at this point, I've got the content. Don't worry about if there's like ungainly spaces in between content. That'll all go away when we publish. But the one thing there's 2 things I want to do with the content I just added. First, I want about state soils to be a header, not just regular text. So I'm going to come in here, highlight that. A context menu appears. So rather than paragraph format, I'm going to choose the drop down and make it a heading. Simple, simple. The rest of my text should be in paragraph format. The other change that I want to make is rather than presenting a hyperlink as the full URL in the text, I want that to be a hyperlink embedded under USDA Natural Resources and Conservation Service. So I'm actually going to copy and paste that URL, Control C, and then highlight the words that I want to link. In the context menu, click the little chain button, which is how we add a hyperlink, and paste in the URL and hit enter. Now I can delete that long hyperlink from my paragraph. Oh, and I just screwed that up. And again, we can, if we want to double check, we can click on that. Actually, we need to preview it, but we could double check whether that actually worked or not. The last thing I want to show, and then I'll turn you loose to work on the next paragraph or next section on soil monoliths, is I'm going to add the content, add more content at the bottom of my paragraph. Rather than text, this time I'm going to choose to add a button. And the text that I want to appear in that, what should we put? Soil fact sheets. And while the context menu below is open, actually, I'm going to click the pencil and then copy and paste the URL from the resource document into that, maybe. That work? Again, StoryMaps, the builder application here, is constantly saving our work. If you want to check your progress, you can preview. All the spaces that we may have inadvertently introduced with content blocks that are empty disappear. Oh, I can see one problem. My hyperlink to NRCS didn't take, so I'll have to go back and fix that. But if I click on Soil Fact Sheets, that opens up a new browser tab, and I can go to that website with all the PDF files. So that worked great. So let me make one change. Preview again. Yeah, that worked. Good. Let's go to the NRCS website. Excellent. Okay. Getting a better handle on the workflow here. Got to have the content, of course, but then it's just a matter of assembling your story element by element. Go ahead, if you feel confident, add another section right below About State Soils, this time with the soil monolith information. That also includes another button to add. So we've got the introduction part of our story map complete, a little bit about what a state soil is. For people interested in looking at the state soil, we've got some information about the monoliths and authoritative websites to go to find additional information. That's all we were trying to accomplish with that first section. Right below my button for soil monoliths, oh, I'm in the preview mode again. I want to add another element here, this time a separator. That's it, just a simple horizontal line. Okay. And finally, we get into our map content. Okay. We're using, again, the Explore Map template. So the map is added, but it's a blank map. So the first thing that we're going to want to do in the map part of the Builder app is choose map options. We want to change the map. And as per norm, there are any number of ways to customize here what the map does. But what I want to highlight, and I will point out as well that our GIS portal and ArcGIS Online in general works equally well with 3D data as 2D data. So we could be presenting three-dimensional scenes as easily as we can two-dimensional maps. But right now, the map that we're looking at is the Human Geography Light base map, no content there. We actually want to choose that button. We want to change the base map. And rather than pick from one of the predefined base maps that Esri gives to us, we want to add your web map. So find Browse More Maps at the bottom. You kind of go back to a hybrid site here that's kind of a cross between our portal and the StoryMap Builder application. Choose, and it's your content that you should be seeing right now. Hopefully, in this screen, you see the web map that you saved. Simply choose it. If you don't see anything here, or there was a problem with your saving of the web map, you could also go to My Organization. I see lots of soil maps being published within our organization. And you could search for my web map if you want it. Okay. But just grab your map, choose it, and that content automatically gets added. Now we're totally at the wrong scale right now, but we've replaced the default base map with our web map, which includes the operational soil layers and the human geography light base map. So once I've done that, I'm going to choose Done. And then my map kind of automatically zooms to the spatial extent of the content. Okay. We're going to go back and change another option in a bit, but now we're at the stage where we start adding information for every state. So in 10 minutes, we need 13 states added. Pick a couple of states that you want to focus on and add. That'll be fine. You've got the resource document. You can always go back and expand. But where we're going to add that content is right here within the Explore map window. So no more going back in and adding content blocks. Instead, we're going to start with location number 1 in an alphabetical order for Great Plains states. That's Colorado. So looking at my resource document, I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to type in for the title, Colorado. And maybe a dash in the state soil name, whatever you'd like, which is sites. I've got a nice paragraph largely built off the NRCS soil fact sheets in the resource document. I'm going to copy and paste that in the description. To top off or to finalize Colorado's entry into my story map, I'm going to go ahead and add an image or video. I'm going to browse to that images subdirectory in our shared folder, our shared data. And in this lengthy list of image files, you'll find one called Colorado_sites. Choose it, hit open, and add. The other thing I'm going to do to finalize Colorado is in the map, I'm actually going to zoom in to Colorado. Well, maybe. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to, where's the button? At the bottom of Colorado's entry, there's an Add Location button. So when I click on that, I can now go back to a different look of my map. It may take a second. We're all tapped into the same web resource, so the performance is a little bit slow. I'm going to zoom into Colorado and somewhat arbitrarily pick a location inside of a green zone and choose Add Location. What that is doing is anchoring a future behavior. As someone navigates to Colorado, it's going to want to zoom to this location reference that we've just established. And hit OK. So we've got a photo. Colorado's is the worst photo of all of them. State name, soil name, a bit of information about the soil, its location on the map. Then along the bottom in my map tour ribbon, I kind of have an indication of, okay, I've finished site number 1. Okay. To add our next site in the ribbon at the bottom, I'm going to hit the plus sign. Site number 2 appears. I'm going to move down my list to Iowa. Title, Iowa. Tama soils. Copy and paste the description, add the location. And Iowa's soils actually is the orange. No, it's the blue soil. It's the blue soil. That's a good location. Add location. Again, the image that we have for Iowa is in our shared folder and images, Iowa, Tama, add. So rinse and repeat for however many states that you want to add from the list. And again, anytime you want to see what that looks like, you can hit the preview button and take a test drive of your work. There is, and the dimensions that they recommend escapes my memory at the moment. You have options to stretch if your image is too small in terms of number of pixels, number of rows. It will stretch it to fill a space. So it is good to know maybe that you want like a 400 by 300 pixel image there, if at all possible. I grabbed each of these images actually from the NRCS fact sheets. So they're not the world's greatest images, but they work. And I chose to add images. As you saw, if you wanted a video here, you could actually add a video. You can add multiple images. So if you wanted to have I don't know what, 3 or 4 images of site soils in Colorado, that becomes almost a little navigation bar. You can pan left and right and see different images for that location. I'm going to jump down. Let me do one more. I'm going to do Kansas, of course, as my third site. Oh. And since Kansas is clearly the most important state in this list, even though I added it third, I can rearrange the locations along the ribbon. So I simply grab Kansas, which was third, it's now Iowa. I'll just move it to the front of the line, and the numbers even change. So it's not even super important what order you go into. It's just that you got to get all that content in. So far, so good? Yeah, it's like writing a manuscript or a proposal. A lot of content. A lot of content.
So once you add the point in a particular location and you feel that you need to change it a little bit.
Yeah, you can do that. So let's, if I want to change Colorado's location, I can just scroll down to the bottom of that entry and choose Edit. It switches me to the tour point location. I can zoom in. If I want to move it from here, I select the point, and I move it over there. Really, the only thing those locations are serving as a reference point for where the map will zoom to when that state is activated. So if I preview, for example, okay, scroll down, scroll down. When I get to Kansas, it's that location that controls the map view. So I go to Colorado, it moves over to the second point. It's not the state, it's not the base map or the soils that's driving that decision. It's that point that I added to the map. If I scroll down to Iowa, again, I go to the third point. So I want to put the location in this style of a story map, probably on the soil, but in a good location where I can see the entire state, for example. If I didn't have a location, let me edit that. Oh, I'm in preview mode. There's no geographic anchor for that text. I'll do it for Kansas. If I edit Kansas and delete it, and preview, see that it doesn't it's kind of it's almost like a dead link, right? It doesn't know where to go. But as soon as I go to Iowa, it zooms over to point number 3. You can click on it here. There's no attributes underlying those points. It's just a geographic anchor. I need to add that point again. Okay. Let's take about 5 more minutes maybe. Continue adding states if you'd like, or if you're done adding states, which I perfectly understand, what I would recommend is at least adding a last section, that section learn more about soils. It gives you an opportunity to not only add 2 additional text blocks, but also the linked YouTube video to your story map. So we'll do that below the map, so you get to scroll down. Text. Learn more about soils. Highlight header. Text. We have a component for video that we can add, and the link to that YouTube video is in the resource document. And there we go. Oh, I don't want that. Let's go back. Any questions or problems? People are done adding soils? Add the video. Almost ready to publish and do a full test drive. I actually want us to go back up to the very top of your story map. And one nice thing that you can choose to add, this would appear right above the title of the story map, is a cover image or video. So there's a button specifically for that. I'll click on it. And in the images directory I've shared, there is, I think it's a JPEG called, what did I call it? Something like cover image. Cover image. Select it and add it. And we see it at the top. So it's kind of like a header image for the overall application. That is a nice little cherry on top. I think another image that might be nice is right under the title and the introduction. I'm going to add just an image component. And again, in the shared resources, there's a JPEG called Soil Profile. I'll add it. And when you add an image, this is true for, I think, the video and some of the other components. We've got some additional choices here in terms of format. When your mouse is over the image itself, the context menu appears, so we could word wrap text around that if we wanted. We can make it kind of medium-sized, large-sized, or tiny-sized. And I like tiny. Just taking that basic image and shrinking and expanding it. We can also, if we want, Add a caption. So again, once you've thought up an idea for a story, targeted an audience, assembled all the content, put it all together, you're ready to publish. So right now, this really isn't yet a story map. It's a draft story map. And when you're happy with your changes, we can always go back and make additional modifications. So this isn't just like a final thing, one and done. You choose publish. And here we have an opportunity to create what's called a story card. It's kind of like the thumbnail image you'll see in the story map builder application about your story map. If you have a cover image, that automatically gets used as the image, although you can change it if you want. And you can also set the sharing level. So by default, it's private. You and only you have access to it. I'll make this available to our to the organization and hit publish. I've never encountered a technical issue in publishing. Now it's there. Here's the full-blown story map. And again, depending on who I've opted to share it with, if I want them to be able to access this website, all I have to do is share the URL. If I give you a URL for a story map that I've created, for example, that I've only shared with the organization, when you copy and paste the URL into a browser, the first thing you'll ask to do is log into your portal site. So that's the security protection. If I shared it with the entire general public, it's freely available. Okay. One last thing, and then I'll be happy to answer or try to answer any questions you have. I'm actually going to go back. I want to make one small edit. So here in the preview, I'm going to click on the three dots, more actions, choose Edit Story. And one thing I noticed when I was previewing the final product here is I didn't really like the zoom levels that I saw when each state was activated within the Explorer template. I actually wanted to zoom in a little bit more in this application. So I'm going to change that by going back into the map options, scroll down, and the very last option we have here is initial zoom level. Automatic is selected by default. I'm going to choose custom. And from the list, it's not like I actually get to type in a representative fraction here, but I want to see what Esri thinks a state or province scale is. So I choose that, look at it, and go, yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe counties? That's a little bit too far. So I'm going to go back to state or province. I like that zoom level. And then I'm just going to hit done. Publish my story one more time. And now when I scroll through my maps, I'm just zooming in a little bit more to each one of those marker locations that I've added. Sure, yeah, I mean, it still is. I've just been stingy on my sharing levels, and only people here at K-State have the opportunity to look at it. So if you were at another school or just a private individual with an Esri account, an ArcGIS online account, you couldn't find that. You wouldn't be authorized to see it. If I shared it with the public, anybody could access it. So, you know, for a lot of work that we do, a research project, we'll set up a group in our university portal. We'll add students, faculty, and staff to that. We can treat that as almost like a OneDrive account for GIS resources. This person works on this map, I work on this, another person does an analytical operation that they want to share. It's all part of our group. We can assemble our products, and then at some point decide whether we want to share that beyond the group. Is one nice workflow. Esri would define it as a map-centric, semi-immersive communication medium. that tells a story. And I've seen really, I mean, when you first log into, let me go back. I'm going to go to my projects. When you first log into the StoryMap application builder, there's some really nice quick links over here on the left. And one is Explore Stories. So Esri kind of cherry picks some really nice examples of story maps. Like this is a cool one, Sounds of the Wild West. And I thought that was cool because it incorporated audio, right? Because that's one of the components that we can add to a story map. So again, lots of pictures, lots of way to integration that's telling a story. I've seen fellow geography professors package lectures as story maps, right? It has all the text and graphics we want, and we just navigate through. That's kind of a creative way of doing that. Story maps geared for lay audiences as well as scientific experts. It depends, right, who your audience is, what content's there, at what level you present it. But the common theme with a story map is the map. We're using the map as the organizing framework for what we present spatially and thematically. Man, gotta get to the, yeah, so if you want to know what, oh, I have the, yeah. Yeah, one of the components we didn't look at is there's a timeline component that is adaptable for many more things than just a timeline. But if you want a sequential presentation of things by some order, that's a great way to organize it within a story map. Yeah, it could be real geography, it could be made-up geography, it could be relative geography. That could be part of your map. And to me, really, one of the neat things about story maps is, again, other than a little bit of computer savvy, right, and the ability to find data that you want, that's probably the trickiest part, quite honestly, is to find the data you want to add to your map. But you create the web map, and then you go through a pretty simple interface here in the story map builder to actually construct things. That list of examples is really great for getting the creative juices flowing to see what's even possible. And I look at it from time to time specifically for that purpose. Yeah, I mean, going back to Canvas, you can have your Canvas bio. Here's my bio, right? And you can track me from, my personal story throughout my life is just one example. Building on what Brian was talking about, we brought in static data into a web map. We can create web maps that are harvesting data live. So if we have people in the field with smartphones, you can share web maps for them that they can access on their phone, enter locations, attribute information, and we could be seeing that added to our web maps live, even inside of a story map. Because it's not the story map that's controlling it, it's the web map inside the portal. So it gets kind of creepy because you can actually track employees as they as they walk around, or increasingly common is workers simply going out in the field and updating data while they're out there, taking photographs, building out a geodatabase as part of their daily activities.
So once the data is not live anymore, then it will store it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I share a web map with you and it's called the Field Maps application for smartphones, you call up the web map, you have an add data button, you add data to the map. I'm actually recording that to a SQL Server database.
So for each image to be added to the map, we need to have a GPS coordinates for all the images, right?
Usually you're adding a point feature, and you have the option to add attachments to that, which would be your photographs. The photographs then get stored inside of what's called a geodatabase inside of SQL Server. So when the web map gets updated with that new user-supplied information, I could go in and click on that point, access the attributes that you entered, as well as the attachments.
You have something like to map, for example, let's say soil content in different areas. So if I take images, we should have a GPS coordinate for each image to really map it to the the web map that we have to really pinpoint that was the location we have the map, right?
Yes, the only thing I would say is you would be adding a point first. That's where your phone or your mobile device's GPS comes into play. It's going to place you at that location, you accept it, and then add your attributes. The photo then it probably is geo-referenced on your mobile device, but the photo then becomes a property of the point feature that you've added. Its inherent coordinates doesn't really matter in that context. It's just another attribute that you're stored in a database at that point location. So yeah, you'd be walking around the field with a map, your GPS is turned on, you can watch the point follow you along a stream or in the fields. You go, oh, I need to do a sample here, record the location, type in the information, snap a picture, add the attachment, go to the next site. And that's live being added to a database. So anybody who's consuming that data in a web map or a web application can see that in real time.
Yeah, but somebody can later figure it out that this was the latitude, longitude of the location from the...
Yeah. That's actually part of the geometric properties of the points that get recorded in the database is the coordinate. Yeah.
So in our story map, we cannot see the coordinates.
No. No. Other than the web map, the only thing that we've added are those locations, but those locations, they're not in a geodatabase. They're just part of our story map, and it's anchoring where our map was going to zoom into. There's no attributes there. It's just almost like a page mark or a bookmark.
Can we add attributes to that?
If we had in the web map left the soil monoliths layer on, you would see those here. You could click on that point, access the pop-up window attributes. Absolutely. It all depends on the web map design. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, does anybody use live data collection into a geodatabase? No, that was really good. Yeah, it's great, right? Because then what you can do with your GIS team is not only record the data, but then once you're done, subject it to a series of analytical routines and then show that on a map. So you go out into the field and you collect, pH information, and you get several dozen points. You can hit a button, it grabs that information, interpolates it, generates a layer that you can then see on your map. And anytime someone adds pH, another measurement to it, it updates the interpolation. So if you want to share that with a group, it's easy to do. Relatively easy to do. Is there any other questions I might, either from the Zoom folks or people here that I might be able to try to help out with? Maybe the final thing I'll show, I mentioned, we've been doing all the design work within the StoryMap app builder application, which we can see our work, our organization's work, our groups right through that interface. But I'm actually going to go back to my content. And actually, I stored it in my root folder. There's all my story maps. Right, so they're in my portal content as well. I just can't edit it in the portal. I have to edit it through the special web app builder. But if I wanted to change the permissions, I could certainly change it from here. This is what we just created here today. That's it.
So do you have it, just real quick, do you have suggestions for those that are wanting maybe a little bit more? Do you have like other resources you can recommend, or maybe like, I know there was classes mentioned earlier, but like what would kind of a natural transition into furthering the skills that you built today?
Good, great question. So if story maps are something you really want to learn more about, remember storymaps.arcgis.com. But there are in addition to exemplar story maps that you can look at to get ideas, there's tutorials as well that give you more in-depth training on certain aspects of StoryMap construction. That's a great resource. It's free. You can also access webinars on the topic produced by Esri for free, which is a great resource. And I mentioned before, as part of our university site license agreement with Esri, we're all entitled to free web-based GIS training from Esri, and they're usually really good courses. Esri.com/training is the website. If you forget that, go to gis.ksu.edu. There's a link to it there. Again, you sign into this site with your EID and password, and there are several hundred very good web-based training tutorials across a range of GIS topics, from basic data editing to 3D point cloud generation and LiDAR data, and everything in between for all Esri software products from the desktop to the enterprise level. And that's a really nice resource. Most of those web trainings end with a short quiz that you have to get an 80% on to pass. Sometimes you have to take the quiz a couple of times. But once you finish, you get a course completion certificate. So you have documentation that you've experienced those training topics. Really, really quite good. We incorporate some of those training tutorials as part of our courses as well. Free, if you sign in. If you don't sign in, it ranges between $300 and $1,200 per course. So it's a really nice resource to get it for free. If you're really interested in in-person training, you could go to the closest regional office. Esri regional offices to us here in Manhattan is Denver or St. Louis. They have excellent multi-day in-person training. That does have a charge, but through our site license, you get about a 50% discount on that. Good. Well, thank you. I appreciate everybody's attention. I hope it was at least somewhat helpful, give you some ideas maybe about how StoryMaps might be able to be used in your own work. If you ever have any questions about GIS software, licensing it, how to download, how to install, questions about the portal, always happy to try to answer those for folks. Thank you.
Thank you.